Well, good morning. It's good to see you. To those of you who are gathering online with us, thank you so much for giving us a little bit of your time today. I want to do sermon number 4 in a sermon series entitled, Jesus is Still. Still what? Well, in each of these sermons we have looked for. We have looked in the Bible for a word that we could use to turn those 3 words into a complete sentence. And so this morning I have found one of those words and I want to pass it on to you. And I have found it in the New Testament book of Luke, chapter number 19. We're going to read a couple of verses together in a moment. Before we do, let me set the stage and tell you what is happening. Jesus and his men are en route to Jerusalem. Along the way, Jesus had to stop in the city of Jericho. Now, before he even entered the city, a large crowd had formed and they were following him. I think they were hoping to witness one of his miracles. Well, if that was the case, they got what they wanted. Before Jesus even got into the town, he healed a blind man. Well, all this did was arouse a greater amount of curiosity, and the crowd just grew larger. By the time Jesus got in the city, both sides of the street were lined with people. I believe it probably looked like New York City at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Now, behind one of these walls of people, there was a fella who was desperately wanting to see Jesus. But he had a problem. He was short. And if I looked at you when I said that, I didn't mean anything by it. But he was short. And he couldn't see over the wall of people. His name was Zacchaeus. You ever heard of Zacchaeus? Now, what Zacchaeus lacked in stature, he made up for in brains. He came up with a plan. Somehow or another, he found out the route that Jesus was going to take through Jericho. And so his decision was, I will run ahead of everybody else. I'll beat them to a spot where I can hopefully see Jesus. And so he ran ahead. He gets there, and I believe he's thinking, well, what if all of these people crowd me out down here and I can't see? So happened to be there was a sycamore fig tree. And he thought, I'm going to climb that tree. So he ran, he climbed, and then I believe he positioned himself in the forks of the tree, and he is now waiting. That's how desperate he was to see Jesus. Now, just who was this guy? Was he a religious leader? Bible scholar / teacher? Devout follower of Jesus? Who was this man that felt he had to see Jesus? I'll tell you how the citizens of his town described him. They said he is a notorious sinner. Notorious? This man that was up in the tree, got to see Jesus, was a lawbreaker. He habitually broke the laws of God, and he must have broken a lot of them and broken them in a grand fashion because his sinfulness was legendary. You know, his sinfulness was known far and wide. Now, I don't know all the sins he committed, but I know one sin he committed. He cheated people. He cheated a lot of people. He cheated a lot of people out of a lot of money. You see, by trade, he was a tax collector. At this point in Israel's history, they were under Roman rule. And the Roman government was collecting exorbitant taxes from the Israelites. And guess whom they hired to collect these taxes? They hired Jews. And so the Jews who had to pay these taxes to the Jewish tax collectors looked at tax collectors as though they were traitors, and so therefore they despised them. But they didn't just despise tax collectors because they viewed them as traitors. They despised them for another reason. Tax collectors used the authority the Roman government had given them to take more than just taxes from the people. With the understanding, Rome approved of this, with the understanding that whatever you gather that's above what we are requiring, you get to keep. And so tax collectors pocketed a lot of people's money unfairly. So the average tax collector became a wealthy man. Now get this, Zacchaeus wasn't just your normal run-of-the-mill tax collector. He was the chief tax collector. Which means he had a small army of tax collectors that worked for him. And he was not just the chief tax collector over Jericho, which was a very prosperous city. He was the chief tax collector over the entire region, which means he's probably taking a small cut from every one of them. So the Bible states very clearly that he became insanely wealthy. So who is this up the tree? It's a man his townspeople considered a traitor. Most people that knew him despised him. He was a cheat and a thief. He was a sinner, and not just your normal run-of-the-mill sinner. He was a notorious sinner. So he's perched up there in the tree, and I believe he's waiting there in great anticipation. And at first he hears the crowd coming. I believe his heart rate picked up. In just a moment, he saw the crowd coming down the street. His plan was working perfectly. I believe he picked the person out of the crowd, assuming that's got to be Jesus. He seems to be the center of attention. And so Jesus leads this parade of people down. And about the time he got under the fig tree, Jesus stopped. Now, as I read this week, Scott, I couldn't help but think of the scene from the movie Forrest Gump. And Forrest has been running for years, right? You've seen the movie. He's running, and all of a sudden, he gets this large following of people that are running along with him. And all of a sudden, one day, out in the desert, out of nowhere, Forrest just stopped. And everybody got quiet. And they're anticipating that this guy has got something important that he's about to say. So I believe Jesus walked along. I believe it's a loud crowd. And all of a sudden, Jesus stopped. And I believe everything went dead silent. What's he going to say? What's he going to do? Well, I want you to see what he did. In Luke chapter 19, verse 5, it said, when Jesus came by, he looked up at Zacchaeus and called him by name. Zacchaeus, he said, quick, come down. I must be a guest in your home today. Now picture this. Everybody's waiting. Everybody's anticipating. What's he going to say? He looks up into the tree and says, Zacchaeus? Now, wait a minute here. Wait a minute. Best I can tell, Zacchaeus never met Jesus. So how in the world did Jesus know who he was? You remember that Jesus was God in a human body. So he not only knew who Jesus was, who Zacchaeus was, he knew Zacchaeus. He knew every sordid detail of Zacchaeus' life. Now, he knew every sin he'd ever committed. He knew every person. He could tell you their names, their address, of every person whom he'd ever cheated. He could tell you to the amount, dollar and cent, this is how much you cheated this person out of. Jesus knew everything about him. Yet, as we will see, Zacchaeus is the reason that Jesus had to come to Jericho. Think about that. What was business did he have with Zacchaeus? Well, he said, I'm inviting myself into your home today. I must. That's the word he used, right? Must. In other words, he didn't say, I'm hoping we could get together. It would be good if we could. He said, I have to spend some time with you, man. And it's got to be today. I'm not asking you to work me into your schedule. Can you pencil me in for a week from Tuesday? He said, I have to spend some time with you. And it's got to be today. So Zacchaeus is faced with a decision. Do I have him over or not? Now, I've been a notorious sinner. Have you? I got two. I knew Tony would say yeah. I mean, we notoriously sinned together quite a bit when we were younger. He better say yeah. I know him. He knows me. In my days as a notorious sinner, if I'd gotten a text from Jesus saying, hey, I'm going to drop by about 12, what do you think? You know what I'd have said? Sorry, I won't be in. I mean, you know what? I would have assumed if Jesus come to my house, he's coming to straighten me out. He's coming to settle the score. I knew one of these days, that he would show up. You know what Zacchaeus said? The Bible said he quickly came down out of the tree. He didn't climb higher. He came down. And it said with great excitement and joy. He said, sure, Jesus, come over to my house. Let's hang out. And I see this. So he said, yes, I see. Think about this. With great excitement and joy. In my mind, I see the two walking off together. I can almost see Jesus putting his arm around Zacchaeus, looking down on him with a big smile. Huh? If you listen real carefully, I believe as they were walking away, you could hear the two laughing together. Great joy. And what do you think the citizens of Jericho thought about this? I mean, when the folks of First Baptist Jericho saw Jesus walking off, heard what he said, got to spend time with you, walking off with the most corrupt, low-down, no-good guy in their town, what do you think they said? Do you think they said something like this? Well, bless his heart. He has needed this. I've prayed for him long and hard. But this has got to be answered our prayers. I mean, if anybody needed Jesus, Zacchaeus needs Jesus. You know what the Bible said? It said it displeased them. They didn't like it. They felt snubbed. They were confused. What business would Jesus have with a guy like that? Huh? As a matter of fact, the Bible said they grumbled. You know what that means? It means when you lower your voice to register a complaint in the hopes that God won't hear you because you're talking softly. They grumbled. So Jesus and Zach go in the house, and I believe based on what I read here, that the crowd gathered outside of Zach's house waiting on Jesus to come out. Well, in time, Jesus and Zacchaeus walked out on the porch, and the crowd overheard part of the conversation. They heard Zacchaeus said, Jesus, I've decided that I'm going to give a half of everything I've got away to the poor. Now, you listen. He's a notorious sinner, right? He's cheated you out of money, right? He's going to do what? And he said, oh yeah, the people I've cheated, if I cheated them out of $100, I'm going to give them $400. This has got to be confusing to the citizens of Jericho. How did they know him? He's a notorious sinner. He's always been consumed with himself, and now he's thinking of others. That's different. He's always been greedy, and now he's generous. That's different. He's lived his life doing wrong, and all of a sudden he wants to do right. That's different. So they had to be wondering, what happened in that house? So Jesus turned to him. Now listen, he's got him hooked. He's got a purpose. He's got him hooked. He said, I'm going to get a little bit of the Hodge paraphrase here. He said, I guess you're wondering what happened. I want to tell you something. Salvation came to his house today because he has proven to be a real, true son of Abraham. Now here's what Jesus said. I want to tell you why he's different. I just saved him. Now here's what Jesus didn't say. I didn't save him because he's changed. He's changed because I saved him. Huh? And he didn't. And listen, when he said he's proven to be a true son of Abraham, he wasn't saying I saved him because he's a Jew. He's saying like his forefather Abraham, who was made right with God by faith, I saved this man today because of his faith in me. Now, I believe a lot of people are sitting there looking at Jesus slack-jawed, like, so he said, I guess it's time for me to share the moral of the story you've seen unfold here in front of you today. Look at verse number 10. He said, for the Son of Man, me. I don't think you folks fully understand my line of work. I don't think you understand the business I'm in. None of you were displeased when I healed a man. But it irked you when I saved a man. Because you've lost sight of what I do. You don't understand my purpose. You don't understand what drives me. You don't understand what brought me to this earth. You don't understand the beat of my heart. He said, for the Son of Man came to seek and save those who are lost. Did you catch our word? All right, listen, our verse is we've kind of taken this series from is Hebrews chapter 13, verse 8 that says, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Jesus said, I came to seek and save those who are lost. Well, that was yesterday, so what does this tell us about today, huh? Here's the word. You ready? Jesus is still seeking. Now, we can't stop there, though, can we? I'm going to cheat, Tim. I'm going to use 2 words today. Word number 1, Jesus is still seeking. I got to add another word because Jesus is still saving. Jesus is still seeking the lost. Who are the lost? I think most of us know that the New Testament was written in the Greek language, and if you look up the Greek word that was translated in our English Bible, lost, it has twofold meaning. But number 1, it means separated. People who are lost are separated from God, which means they may know about Him, but they don't know Him. They don't have a personal relationship with Him. You ask, why would that be? Sin separates. Now, listen, I could turn to any number of passages in the Bible to show you that. Sin separates human beings from God. And when we choose a sinful lifestyle, we're choosing not to have a personal relationship with God. The second meaning of the word was to be living in grave danger. So someone who is lost doesn't have a personal relationship with God. They've separated from Him. But they're living every moment of every day of their life in grave danger. What kind of danger? They could die that way. And if they die separated from God, then they are separated from God for all eternity. There's no do-over. So Jesus is seeking people who are lost. Same yesterday, today, still does this. Every day, I believe He walks the hallways of our schools, visits the classrooms, every place we work. He goes to and fro through your neighborhood, walks through your house. Every office space, every dinner, every restaurant. Jesus is still seeking those who are lost. Why? Not to condemn them, to pay them back, to settle the score, but to save them. Oh, what does that word mean? We use it a lot. She got saved. I've been saved. What? There again, the Greek word translated into our English Bible saved has a threefold meaning. Number 1, it means to reconcile. When Jesus saves someone, He reconciles them with the Father. In other words, He becomes a bridge between the two, ending the separation so that that person now has a real relationship with God. They don't just know about Him, now they know Him. That's one. The second meaning was rescued. When Jesus saves someone, He rescues them from the consequences of their sins. He forgives, He pardons. He rescues them from eternal punishment so that they're safe and safe forever. The third word was to recreate. So once Jesus reconciles this person with God and He rescues them from the consequences of sin, He goes to work on the inside, recreating them, turning them into a new creation. That's what was going on with Zacchaeus. That's what you attribute the change to. He'd been saved. So Jesus is seeking people who are separate from God, living in grave danger, so that He can reconcile them with God, rescue them from the consequences of sin, and recreate them from the inside out. Jesus is still seeking because Jesus is still saving. Now, in light of this, what should you do? I think it depends on which version of Zacchaeus that you identify with, the before or the after. Let's say you identify with the after version, and you go, Ronnie, Jesus has saved me. Here's what I'm suggesting that you do. You should say, thanks. I don't think it's a coincidence that on this week, God put this portion of the Bible on my heart. Because Thursday, I celebrated a significant anniversary. Thursday, January the 21st, I celebrated the 42nd anniversary of Jesus saving me. On January the 21st, 1979, I woke up. I put on the best clothes I had, which weren't very good. I went to a little church, little white church situated between Salem and Walhalla, Flat Shoals Baptist Church. Charles, you know why I went there? I was looking for Jesus. I went there and got the surprise of my life. I discovered that Jesus had come to Flat Shoals that morning looking for me. We met there, and He saved me. So Thursday, Friday, all I could say every time I thought about it was, thanks. Because Jesus, You're the only reason I'm saved. You're it. If it weren't for You, I wouldn't be saved, and if it weren't for You, I couldn't stay saved. You know why? I'm going to make a confession. There is still a notorious sinner that lives in me. Take Jesus out of the equation. This is what I said all Thursday afternoon, all Friday morning. Take You out of the equation, Jesus. I am lost, and I am hopelessly lost. Thanks. You're no different from me. There's one reason that you've been saved. One, Jesus. He took the initiative, came to earth, and took a human body. You know why He took a human body? I'll tell you one reason He took a human body. He came to die. You can't kill an eternal God. So He had to take a body. He then lived a sinless life. Well, here we go. I'm sorry. You know, I'm not. Listen, if you're saved and you start thinking about it, it don't move you. You've moved. You moved at a distance from the one who saved you. I didn't say that to get down on a negative note. Are you ready? He lived a sinless life. Then he allowed angry religious people to nail him to a cross and crucify him. And there on the cross, he willingly took responsibility for every sin you ever committed. And he died a death that was meant for you, taking your punishment so that he could fix or repair the damage that existed, tear down the barrier that was between you and the Father. If that weren't enough, he turned his thoughts toward you before he was ever a thought in your mind. He chose you long before you ever chose him, and he was looking for you before you were ever looking for him. He took the initiative and pursued you. He came looking for you. He's the reason you're saved. So you know what I think? I think it's only appropriate that we say thanks. So we're going to do that. You ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3. Thanks. Oh, listen to me, man. Listen to me. That ain't going to cut it. We got to crank the volume up. Listen, I want us to say that at such a level that all of heaven and all of hell hear us. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Thanks. There you go, baby. There you go. But what if you don't identify with the after version? What if you identify with the before? What if for your life up to this moment, you've chosen a sinful lifestyle rather than a relationship with God? And you're lost. Separate from him, living every moment of every day in grave danger. What would I suggest to you? I think you should say yes. Jesus looked up at Zacchaeus and said, I'm inviting myself into your home. Your call, what do you think? Zach could have said no. If he had have, his story would have ended differently. Fortunately, Zach said yes. And Jesus came into his home and he saved him. Do you understand what's going on here today? Jesus is inviting himself into your life. It's your call. You're facing a huge decision. Yes or no? Now, I'm going to meddle in your business for a minute, okay? Don't you cut that computer off, huh? Stay with me. I'm going to meddle in your business. I know what's been going on in your life lately. Up until recently, you've never been open to the idea of becoming a Christian, being saved. You had no interest in God, Jesus, the Bible, the afterlife. None of that. None of that. But something's changing. You're watching a sermon. You've come to church. And this is not the first sermon you've watched. What's happening? You're going through the same thing that Zacchaeus went through. If all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you find yourself looking for Jesus, that's the evidence that he is looking for you. Jesus said to some guys one day, he said, nobody will ever be saved. Nobody ever moves in the direction of God unless God first draws him. That's the way it works, Burl. When Jesus is looking for you, he starts something in your mind and your heart, drawing you to him. So that he's looking for you, you begin looking for Him. That's what happened to me on January the 21st, 1979. Jesus was looking for me, and at the same time He's drawing me to Him, so that on that day in that church we met. Our paths intersected. He saved me. It is absolutely not a coincidence that you chose to come to church this day. This church this day. It's no coincidence that you are watching this sermon right now. Oh, it's been divinely arranged. Jesus told Zacchaeus, today's your day. Today. I want you to know today is your day. It's your time. So here's what I'm encouraging you to do. Say yes. Say yes. Let Him save you. Yeah, Ronnie, how do I do that? Just say yes. I'm going to ask everybody here to bow their head and close their eyes. Let's create a private moment. Just a private moment. I want you to know that I'm not going to embarrass you. I'm not going to call you up to the front, anything like that. Nothing. Don't want an offering from you, any kind of a gift. This is about you, Jesus, and your destiny. If you want to be saved, I would pray a prayer. And I'm going to ask you to do this right now in the privacy of your heart. Wherever you're sitting, watching this online, for those of you sitting here, this is the way I would pray. Jesus, I'm humbled to know that you're looking for me. I'm humbled to know that you want to save me. I'm humbled that you would invite yourself into my life. Well, here's my answer. Yes. Yes, I believe you died on the cross for me. Yes, I believe you paid for my sins. Yes, I believe that you will reconcile me with God and I can know Him personally. Yes, I believe that you will rescue me from the consequences of my sins. Yes, I want you to recreate me from the inside out. Yes, I want to live for you. Yes, I want to be saved. Look at me. For those of you who prayed that prayer, I want you to know what just happened. You're forgiven, pardoned, reconciled with God. You're His. And you can know Him as well as you want to know Him. Rescued. You don't have to tremble in fear as you think about eternity. You're safe. He's about to recreate you from the inside out and make you a new creation, a better you. So you know what I think you need to do? I think you need to bow your head in humility and say, thanks. Let me pray for you. Well, Jesus, here it is. Thank you. Without you, every one of us in this room would be lost. Hopelessly lost. But you took the initiative. You came seeking us. You found us. And then you, by your grace, saved us. Lord, what a privilege it is to know you. And God, for me today, What a privilege it's been to share you with others. Somebody started a new chapter of their life today. Help them, God. Help them celebrate it. Help them grow. Help them make it. Help them enjoy it. That's my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.